The chamber was impossible. That was Ambassador Marcus Webb's first thought as the transport beam deposited him onto the crystalline platform. The grand assembly hall of the Galactic Council stretched in every direction, defying physics and perspective. Massive pillars of light rose into darkness above, while below, concentric rings of platforms floated in precise geometric patterns. On each platform stood a representative from worlds humanity had only dreamed existed. Marcus counted quickly. 73 distinct species. 73 civilizations that had been traveling between stars, while humans were still learning to make fire. The gravity felt wrong here, pulling at him from multiple directions at once. He forced himself to stand straight, to show no weakness. Behind him, the transport pad hummed with fading energy. There would be no going back until this council permitted it. A voice emerged from everywhere and nowhere, resonating through his bones rather than his ears. Human representative, step forward into the judgment circle. Marcus walked toward the center platform, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. As he moved, holographic displays materialized around him, showing Earth from orbit. His home, blue and green and fragile, against the black of space. The being that had spoken revealed itself, descending from above on a platform of flowing mercury. It had no fixed form, constantly shifting between liquid and solid states. When it spoke, 3 voices harmonized as one. I am Arbiter Vaughn of the Vothrine Consensus. This council convenes to render judgment on species classification request 7-7-4-9. The species known as humanity, the world known as Earth. Marcus felt his heart hammering, but kept his expression neutral. This was it. Humanity's application to join the galactic community. 50 years of preparation. 30 years of negotiation just to get this hearing. Everything depended on the next few minutes. We've reviewed your proposal, another voice called out. This one came from a being made of interlocking geometric shapes, constantly rotating. Your species discovered faster than light travel 43 years ago. You've established colonies on 6 worlds. You've made contact with 3 council species. You request admission as a level 4 civilization with full trading rights and diplomatic status. That's correct, Counselor, Marcus replied, directing his words to the geometric being. He'd studied the council's structure for years. That was Counselor Thrain of the Symmetry Collective, one of the oldest and most influential members. Your request is denied, Thrain said flatly. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Denied, not delayed. Not under consideration. Denied. Furthermore, Arbiter Vaughn continued, this council has voted on humanity's status within council space. The vote will now be displayed. Above Marcus's head, burning letters appeared in the air, translating automatically into every language known to the council. Proposal: Exile of species. Humanity from council space vote total. Exile 68. Preserve 5. The number seemed to grow larger, brighter, more terrible. 68 civilizations wanted humanity gone. Only 5 had voted to let them stay. You're banishing us? Marcus heard the disbelief in his own voice. We haven't committed any crime. We've followed every first contact protocol. We've traded fairly. We've respected territorial boundaries. Your crime is existence, a new voice declared. It belonged to a being of crystalline light, beautiful and terrible. I am Representative Gvalix of the Symmetry Collective. We have analyzed your species thoroughly, Ambassador Webb. What we discovered disturbs this council greatly. Holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing Earth's history, wars, conflicts, weapons development. The images played out in horrifying detail. In your last 1,000 years, Gvalix continued, your species has engaged in over 600 significant conflicts. You have developed 14 distinct methods of planetary extinction. Your entertainment industry glorifies violence. Your economic systems are based on competition rather than cooperation. Even your sports simulate combat. That's our past, Marcus argued, finding his voice. We've evolved. We've been at peace for 27 years. We have a unified world government. We've moved beyond those conflicts. Have you? Counselor Thrane's geometric form pulsed with light. When you discovered our existence, what was humanity's first action? You increased military spending by 47%. You reorganized your global structure around the possibility of external threat. You built warships disguised as exploration vessels. Do you deny this? Marcus felt the trap closing. Everything Thrane said was true, but taken out of context. Yes, humanity had prepared for the possibility of hostile contact. Any rational species would. But they'd also invested heavily in diplomacy, in translation technology, in cultural exchange programs. We prepared for multiple scenarios, Marcus said carefully, including peaceful cooperation, which is exactly what we pursued. Because you had no other choice, Arbiter Vaughn stated. Our analysis shows a disturbing pattern, Ambassador. Humanity requires conflict to function. Your technological advancement accelerates during warfare. Your social cohesion strengthens when facing enemies. Your entire civilization is built on the concept of us versus them. Another representative spoke up, this one a being of swirling gas contained in an energy field. I am Counselor Mrex of the Unified Nebula States. I voted for your preservation, Ambassador. I believe every species deserves a chance. But I cannot ignore the data. In 73 million years of Council history, no species has progressed from first spaceflight to faster-than-light capability in under 2,000 years. Your kind did it in 183. The chamber filled with murmurs, the alien languages creating a chorus of incomprehensible sound. You advance too quickly, Rez continued. You adapt too efficiently. You overcome obstacles that would stop other species for centuries. This acceleration is unprecedented, unnatural, dangerous. Marcus felt anger rising beneath his diplomatic training. They were condemning humanity not for being violent or aggressive, but for being too successful, for refusing to stagnate. So that's the real reason, he said, letting steel enter his voice. You're afraid of us. Afraid that we'll surpass you, challenge you, refuse to accept our place in your carefully ordered hierarchy. This council does not operate on fear, Arbiter Vaughn replied, but there was something in the harmonized voice that suggested otherwise. We operate on logic, on preservation, on the safety of 7,000 civilized worlds. Humanity represents an unpredictable variable. Variables must be controlled or eliminated. Eliminated? Marcus stepped forward, and immediately gravity intensified around him, forcing him back to his position. You're threatening genocide? Exile, Kvalex corrected. You have 7 planetary rotations to remove all human presence from Council space. All ships, all stations, all settlements beyond your home system. After that deadline, we will enforce quarantine. Any human vessel that crosses into Council space will be destroyed without warning. This is insane, Marcus protested. We have 40,000 people living on Kepler Station alone, mining operations on 6 asteroids, trade agreements with 12 species. 7 days, Arbiter Vaughn repeated. The decision is final. This council is adjourned. The representatives began to fade, their holographic forms dissolving. Marcus stood alone in the vast chamber, surrounded by the disappearing ghosts of civilizations that had just condemned his entire species. He triggered the emergency beacon in his palm, sending a compressed data burst back to Earth. The message was simple. Exile. 7 days. Prepare. Then he looked up at Arbiter Vaughn's fading form and spoke clearly, knowing his words were being recorded by every council member. You've made a mistake. Humanity doesn't accept exile. We don't surrender. And we never, ever forget those who wrong us. 7 days? We'll be gone in 3. But this isn't over. You've just given 70 billion humans a common enemy. Congratulations, Arbiter. You've united us in a way we could never manage ourselves. The Arbiter's Mercury form solidified for just a moment, and Marcus could have sworn he saw uncertainty there. Then the transport beam activated, pulling him back toward his ship dot as the assembly hall vanished. Marcus allowed himself one cold smile. The Council thought they'd solved their human problem. They had no idea what they'd just unleashed. 3 months after the exile, Captain Rachel Stone stood on the bridge of the UENS Defiant, humanity's newest and most advanced warship, watching the holographic display with grim satisfaction. The ship hung in the darkness beyond Council space, one of 300 vessels in Earth's rapidly expanding fleet. Scanning complete, Captain, Lieutenant James Park reported from his station. We've mapped the entire Catherine trade route. 37 shipping lanes, 12 major hubs, estimated traffic of 4,000 vessels per standard day. Rachel studied the tactical display. The Catherine were one of the Council's founding members, an aquatic species that controlled the majority of mineral trade in this sector. Their ships were massive, slow, and completely undefended. Why would they need weapons? The Council maintained peace. The Council protected trade. The Council enforced order. The Council had also exiled humanity without a second thought. Excellent work, Lieutenant, Rachel said. Transmit the data to Fleet Command. Mark this as Priority 1 for Operation Stranglehold. In the 3 months since the exile vote, Earth had not been idle. Every human colony, every settlement, every mining operation beyond Sol System had been evacuated with ruthless efficiency. The Council had expected panic, chaos, perhaps even defiance requiring military intervention. Instead, humanity had simply vanished. What the Council didn't know was where they'd gone, or what they'd been doing. Captain, incoming transmission from Admiral Torres, the communications officer called out. Priority Alpha. Rachel straightened. Priority Alpha meant direct orders from the highest level. Put it through. Admiral Elena Torres appeared on the main screen, her dark eyes sharp with intelligence and purpose. Behind her, Rachel could see the command center of Station Olympus, humanity's secret base hidden in the nebula fields beyond Council detection range. Captain Stone, status report. Catherine trade routes fully mapped, Admiral. We've identified critical infrastructure and vulnerabilities. The entire economic network is built on the assumption of peace. No defensive capabilities whatsoever. Torres allowed herself a thin smile. Same story across the board. The Vothrine, the Symmetry Collective, the Unified Nebula States. 73 civilizations, and not one of them maintains a standing military. They have police forces, patrol ships, nothing that could resist a coordinated assault. They've had peace for so long they've forgotten how to fight, Rachel observed. Worse than that, Torres replied. They've built their entire civilization on mutual dependency. Trade routes that cross multiple territories. Shared resources. Interconnected communications. They're efficient, Captain. But efficiency creates vulnerability. Rachel understood immediately. Cut off the trade routes, and the entire system collapses. Exactly. But we're not ready for open warfare. Not yet. Right now, we need information and position. How many ships can you spare for deep reconnaissance? 40 vessels could break off without compromising our operational security. Do it. I want eyes on every major Council world. Troop movements, fleet positions, industrial capacity. And Captain, make sure your people understand the standing orders. No contact. No engagement. We stay ghosts until the moment we strike. The transmission ended, and Rachel turned back to her crew. They were young, most of them. The oldest was 35. A generation that had grown up knowing Earth was alone in the universe, only to discover they'd been rejected by that universe the moment they reached for it. That rejection had forged them into something the Council couldn't comprehend. Lieutenant Park, organize reconnaissance teams. I want our fastest ships prepped and ready in 6 hours. Yes, Captain. Rachel walked to the observation window, staring out at the distant stars. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council continued its business, confident that the human problem had been solved. They had returned to their endless debates about trade agreements and cultural exchanges, secure in the knowledge that their peace would continue uninterrupted, had no idea that humanity had spent these 3 months preparing for war on a scale the galaxy hadn't seen in millennia. The Council called humans unpredictable, dangerous, too aggressive to coexist peacefully. Rachel intended to prove them absolutely right. Across human space, the same scene played out on hundreds of ships and stations. Intelligence gathering, strategic planning, weapons development. Every exile had become a soldier. Every scientist had become a weapons designer. Every diplomat had become a spy. On Earth itself, the massive shipyards that once built colony vessels now churned out warships. The factories that produced mining equipment now manufactured weapons. The universities that taught philosophy now offered courses in military strategy. Ambassador Marcus Webb, the man who had stood before the Council and heard their judgment, now served as Earth's Minister of Strategic Operations. He coordinated intelligence from 1,000 sources, building a picture of Council space so detailed that humanity knew the Council's vulnerabilities better than they knew themselves. In his office deep beneath Geneva, Marcus reviewed the latest reports. The Symmetry Collective had concentrations of antimatter production facilities near their core worlds, completely undefended. The Vothrian Consensus stored their genetic archives in a single location, believing their distributed consciousness would protect them. The Kethrin kept 90% of their food production on 3 agricultural worlds. Every piece of information was another weapon in humanity's growing arsenal. Marcus's assistant, a young woman named Lisa Grant, entered with another datapad. Sir, we've received confirmation from the reconnaissance teams. All 73 Council species have been mapped. The complete intelligence package is ready for your review. How long did the Council say we had to leave their space? Marcus asked quietly. 7 days, sir. And how long did we take? 3 days, sir. Marcus smiled. They thought we were running scared. They have no concept of tactical withdrawal. Send word to Admiral Torres. Tell her Phase 1 is complete. We move to Phase 2 on her signal. Lisa hesitated. Sir, Phase 2 means? It means we stop hiding, Marcus finished. It means we remind the galaxy why humanity survived every extinction event our planet threw at us. It means we show the Council exactly what they created when they gave us a common enemy. As Lisa left to transmit the orders, Marcus pulled up a recording of that day in the Council chamber. He watched Arbiter Vaughn's Mercury form shift and flow as it pronounced humanity's exile. He listened to Colics list humanity's crimes. He heard Counselor Thrain explain why humans were too dangerous to coexist with the civilized galaxy. They had been right to fear humanity. They had just been wrong to think Exile would protect them. Marcus closed the file and opened another. Battle plans. Strike coordinates. A timetable that would plunge the galaxy into chaos within weeks. The Council had voted 68-5 to exile Earth. Soon, they would learn that humanity held grudges, and humanity never lost a war it truly committed to winning. The freighter appeared on Catherine Prime's orbital sensors exactly as scheduled, broadcasting standard commercial codes and requesting docking permission. The traffic controller, a Catherine named Velis, whose water-filled control pod gave him a panoramic view of orbital space, approved the request without hesitation. Another routine delivery to the largest trading hub in the sector, Velis had no way of knowing he'd just permitted the first strike of humanity's war to enter his world's defensive perimeter aboard the freighter. Commander David Kumar watched the docking clamps engage and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. His ship, disguised as a Catherine commercial vessel down to the last identification marker, had passed through 3 security checkpoints without raising a single alarm. "We're in," he reported quietly. Initiating Phase 2 Alpha. His crew moved with practiced precision. What appeared to be cargo containers split open, revealing compact surveillance drones that immediately dispersed throughout the station. Within minutes, they'd infiltrated the main computer networks, mapping security systems and communication hubs. David's mission was simple in concept, devastating in execution. He wasn't here to attack. Not yet. He was here to watch, listen, and prepare the ground for what would come next. On 17 other worlds, identical operations unfolded simultaneously. Human operatives, disguised and hidden, penetrating the heart of Council space. They embedded themselves in trading stations, communications relays, and industrial centers. They were invisible, patient, and absolutely committed to their mission. The Council had spent 3 months congratulating themselves on resolving the human crisis peacefully. They had no idea that in those same 3 months, humanity had infiltrated their civilization at every critical juncture, 3,000 light-years away. On Station Olympus, Admiral Torres watched reports flood in from across Council space. Every insertion team had succeeded. Every operative was in position. The trap was set. "Admiral, we have a situation," her intelligence officer reported. Long-range sensors detected a Council patrol approaching the Deneb sector. If they maintain current course, they'll pass within scanning range of Recon Group 7. Torres studied the tactical display. Recon Group 7 consisted of 5 ships mapping military installations near the Symmetry Collective's core worlds. If discovered, the entire operation could be compromised before it even began. Options? She asked. "We can order them to withdraw deeper into the nebula. They'll lose their current observation position, but remain undetected." Torres considered briefly, then shook her head. "Negative. Order them to maintain position and prepare electronic countermeasures. If the patrol gets too close, jam their sensors and disappear. But I want those installations mapped." The officer nodded and transmitted the orders. Torres returned her attention to the strategic overview. Hundreds of ships, thousands of operatives, all moving into position for the largest coordinated military operation in human history. Back on Earth, the preparations had reached a fever pitch. The orbital shipyards worked around the clock, completing 3 new warships every week. The infantry training facilities processed 50,000 recruits monthly, transforming civilians into soldiers with brutal efficiency. In the underground command center, Marcus Webb coordinated with military commanders across human space. The intelligence his operatives gathered painted a comprehensive picture of Council vulnerabilities. And that picture revealed something astonishing. The Council species had achieved peace not through strength, but through interdependence. Their economies were so interwoven, their supply chains so interconnected, that war had become practically impossible. Attack one species, and you damaged your own infrastructure. Disrupt trade routes, and your own colonies starved out. It was elegant, sophisticated, the product of millions of years of social evolution. It was also humanity's greatest advantage. They've built a house of cards. Marcus explained to the assembled military leadership during a secure holoconference. Every species depends on every other species. The Kethrin provide minerals. The Vothrine process them. The Symmetry Collective manufactures goods. The Nebula States handle distribution. Break any link in that chain, and the entire system falters. So we don't need to defeat them militarily, General Park observed. We just need to break the chain. Exactly. And we do it simultaneously, across multiple sectors, before they can adapt. On the screen, Marcus displayed the target list. Mining operations. Manufacturing centers. Distribution hubs. Not military targets, because the Council barely had a military. Economic targets that would cripple their ability to function. The Council thinks of war in terms of armies and battles, Marcus continued. We're going to teach them that modern warfare is about logistics, infrastructure, and economic collapse. By the time they understand what's happening, it will be too late to stop. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Okonkwo, watching from her position aboard a stealth ship near Vothrine space, felt a chill at the ruthless efficiency of the plan. They weren't just going to attack the Council. They were going to dismantle their entire civilization piece by piece. Command, this is Okonkwo. We have visual on the Vothrine Genetic Archive facility. Defenses are minimal as predicted. Single energy shield, no weapon emplacements, skeleton security staff. Confirmed, Commander, came the reply. Hold position and await the attack signal. ETA 48 hours. Sarah settled in to wait. Around her, the crew maintained silent watch on one of the Council's most critical facilities. The Vothrines stored the genetic information of thousands of species here, including their own. It was irreplaceable, priceless, and completely undefended because the idea of someone attacking it was unthinkable. The Council had built there. Civilization on trust and cooperation, humanity, was about to weaponize that trust against them. Across Council space, similar scenes played out. Human ships watched antimatter production facilities, food processing centers, and communication hubs, each team waiting for the signal that would begin the war in earnest. On Kethrin Prime, Commander Kumar's surveillance drones had mapped every critical system in the orbital station. Power generators, life support, traffic control, emergency systems. He knew where every component was located, how they connected, and exactly how to disable them. More importantly, he'd identified something unexpected. The Kethrin used their orbital stations as emergency shelters during their world's severe storm seasons. Millions of civilians evacuated to orbit when the weather turned deadly. The stations weren't just commercial hubs. They were life support for the entire population. Kumar transmitted this information back to Fleet Command, along with a recommendation. If they wanted to force the Kethrin to surrender without massive casualties, the orbital stations were the perfect leverage. Admiral Torres received the report with mixed feelings. The plan was sound tactically. Target the stations, force evacuation, and the Kethrin would have to negotiate. But it also meant holding millions of civilians hostage. She thought about the Council chamber, about how casually they'd voted to exile humanity. 68 species condemning 70 billion humans without hesitation. No trial, no second chance. Just cold calculation that humanity was too dangerous to exist in their perfect, peaceful galaxy. Torres made her decision. Approve Kumar's recommendation. Add the Kethrin orbital stations to the primary target list. But I want precision strikes only. We disable, not destroy. The goal is leverage, not genocide. The order went out, and the target list expanded. Each addition made the coming attack more complex, more risky, and more devastating to the Council's infrastructure. On Earth, in the public squares and community centers, civilians watched news broadcasts showing the preparations. Unlike the Council species, who had forgotten what war looked like, humanity remembered. They'd studied it, analyzed it, and perfected it over thousands of years. Now they would teach the galaxy, a lesson it would never forget. In the Council chambers, far from human eyes, Arbiter Vaughn received routine reports from across Council space. Trade was stable. The diplomatic schedule remained full. The recent human problem had been resolved satisfactorily. Only one report gave pause. Representative Rez of the Nebula States had filed a formal inquiry about unusual sensor readings near the outer territories. Possibly equipment malfunction. Possibly nothing at all. Arbiter Vaughn filed the report for future review and moved on to more pressing matters. The decision would haunt Vaughn for the rest of existence, because in 48 hours, humanity would strike, and the galaxy would learn that exiling Earth had not solved their problem. It had created a monster. The attack began simultaneously across 17 worlds. On Catherine Prime, Commander Kumar's team activated their payload at exactly 0400 station time. The surveillance drones they deployed weeks earlier executed their primary function, releasing electromagnetic pulses that fried every major system in the orbital station. Power failed. Life support switched to emergency backups. Traffic control went dark. 40,000 ships in orbital space suddenly found themselves navigating blind, relying on basic proximity sensors to avoid collision. Chaos erupted as captains shouted conflicting instructions. Automated systems failed, and the carefully orchestrated dance of interstellar commerce collapsed into panic. But Kumar's mission wasn't destruction. It was demonstration. Even as the Kethrins scrambled to understand what happened, human ships decloaked around the disabled station. 3 warships, bristling with weapons the Council had never seen, their hulls painted with Earth's united flag. Kumar broadcast on all frequencies, his message translated into every Council language. "This is Commander David Kumar of the United Earth Navy. We have disabled your orbital infrastructure without firing a single shot. We could destroy it just as easily. You have 12 hours to evacuate all personnel to the surface. After that, this station becomes a military target." On the surface, Catherine emergency coordinators stared at their screens in disbelief. An attack. An actual military attack. Such things didn't happen in Council space. They had laws, treaties. The Council maintained peace, except the humans weren't part of the Council anymore. Similar scenes unfolded across Council territory. At the Vathrine Genetic Archive, Lieutenant Commander Okangshu's stealth ship dropped its cloaking and targeted the facility's shield generators with surgical precision. The shields collapsed, leaving the irreplaceable genetic library completely exposed. "Vathrine Consensus," Okonkwo broadcast. "Your genetic archive is now under human control. Any attempt to approach this facility will result in its complete destruction. Stand down." At antimatter production facilities near the Symmetry Collective's core worlds, human strike teams seized control of the manufacturing process. At communication hubs throughout Council space, uploaded viruses began corrupting data streams. At food processing centers, agricultural worlds, and industrial planets, humanity struck with devastating coordination. They didn't attack military targets because the Council barely had a military. They attacked everything. That made Council civilization function. In the Grand Assembly Hall, Arbiter Vaughn materialized in emergency session, surrounded by representatives screaming for answers. The Mercury form shifted rapidly between states, reflecting the chaos of 3 billion minds trying to process the impossible. "Order!" Vaughn's voice thundered through the chamber. "We will have order." The representatives quieted, but fear rippled through their ranks. Councillor Thrane's geometric forms spun irregularly, mathematical precision disrupted by panic. Representative colics flickered like a damaged light, crystalline structure showing stress fractures. Report from all affected systems, Vaughn demanded. The responses came rapid fire. 17 worlds under attack. 32 critical facilities seized or disabled. 0 human casualties. 0 warning. How is this possible? Kvalix demanded. We have sensor networks, defense systems, early warning protocols. They've been inside our space for months, Counselor Rez stated quietly, the gaseous being's containment field pulsing with resignation. The sensor anomalies I reported, the equipment malfunctions. None of it was coincidence. The humans have been planning this since the moment we exiled them. Arbiter Vaughn accessed the historical records, reviewing the exile vote with new understanding. 68 species had voted to remove humanity from council space, confident in their moral and technological superiority. They'd given the humans 7 days to leave. Humanity had left in 3, and the council had interpreted it as fear. They'd been catastrophically wrong. What are their demands? Thrain asked. They haven't made any, Vaughn replied, studying the attack patterns. This isn't about negotiation. This is about sending a message. On Station Olympus, Admiral Torres watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Every strike had succeeded, every target secured or disabled, and most importantly, they'd achieved it all without killing a single council citizen. That had been Marcus's insistence. Demonstrate capability without becoming the monsters the council claimed them to be. Admiral, incoming transmission from Catherine Prime, her communications officer reported. They're requesting turns for evacuation. Tell them they have 12 hours to clear the station. After that, we disable the structure but allow rescue operations. No casualties unless they force our hand. Similar negotiations began across council space. The humans weren't interested in genocide. They were interested in proving a point. You called us dangerous. You feared our potential. You were right. On Earth, Marcus Webb monitored the operation from the command center. The attack had unfolded exactly as planned, but he knew this was only the opening move. The council would respond. The question was how his answer came 6 hours later. Arbiter Vaughn appeared on every broadcast frequency, addressing both council species and humanity. Commander Kumar, Admiral Torres, Ambassador Webb, the Galactic Council acknowledges your military action and requests immediate cessation of hostilities to begin negotiations. Marcus smiled coldly. 48 hours ago, the Council wouldn't have acknowledged humanity's right to exist. Now they were requesting negotiations. Denied, he transmitted back. The Council had their chance for negotiation. You chose exile instead. Now you'll learn what happens when you back humanity into a corner. He cut the transmission before Vaughn could respond. On Catherine Prime, the evacuation proceeded under human supervision. Commander Kumar watched thousands of Catherine civilians shuttle down to the surface, their aquatic forms visible through transparent transport pods. They moved in orderly fashion, terrified but unharmed. Commander, we're receiving multiple requests for medical assistance. Some Catherine are having trouble with the evacuation stress. Kumar didn't hesitate. Deploy our medical teams. Anyone who needs help gets it. We're not here to create a humanitarian crisis. The Catherine officials coordinating the evacuation stared in confusion as human medics arrived to assist their people. The same species that had just seized their orbital station was now providing emergency medical care. It didn't match their understanding of warfare at all. That was exactly the point. Across council space, the same pattern repeated. Humans struck with overwhelming force, then offered assistance to those affected. They disabled infrastructure, but avoided casualties. They demonstrated absolute military superiority while maintaining strict rules of engagement. The Council had expected barbarism. They got professionalism that exceeded their own standards. In the assembly hall, their representatives struggled to formulate a response. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for diplomacy. A few suggested surrender. "We don't have a military capable of responding," Councillor Thrain stated flatly. "Our defense systems were designed for pirates and smugglers, not coordinated military assault. The humans have disabled 17 critical facilities, and we can't even reach them to attempt recapture." "Then we use economic pressure," Volix suggested. "Embargo their home system." "Cut off trade with what?" Mrez asked quietly. "They already left council space. They're completely self-sufficient. We have nothing they need." The truth settled over the chamber like a weight. The council had no leverage. No military response. No economic pressure. Nothing except the hope that humanity might choose mercy. Arbiter. Vaughn felt the weight of 3 billion Vothrine minds pressing for decision. They had created this crisis by exiling humanity. Now they had to find a way to end it before more damage occurred. "We must negotiate," Vaughn announced. "Regardless of our past decisions, we must find terms acceptable to humanity." "They refused negotiation," Thrain pointed out. "Then we make them an offer they cannot refuse. We acknowledge our mistake. We invite them back into council space. We grant them full membership with complete diplomatic rights." Representative Qualex's crystalline form flashed with anger. "We voted to exile them for good reason. They're dangerous, unpredictable, aggressive, and currently holding 17 of our most critical facilities hostage," Vaughn interrupted. "We can debate their nature later. Right now, we need to end this crisis." The vote was called. This time, the results were unanimous. Preserve. 73 Admiral Torres received the Council's offer 30 minutes later. She read it carefully, then forwarded it to Marcus with a single question. "Do we accept?" Marcus studied the terms. Full Council membership. Diplomatic immunity. Trade rights. Everything humanity had originally requested. Everything the Council had denied them. 3 months ago. He composed his response carefully, knowing it would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy for generations to come. "Counter-offer," he transmitted. "We accept Council membership, but we also maintain our current military positions until a comprehensive peace treaty is negotiated, and the Council publicly acknowledges that their exile vote was unjust." He sent the message and waited. The galaxy held its breath. The peace conference convened in neutral space, aboard a station hastily constructed for the purpose. Ambassador Marcus Webb walked through the corridors toward the negotiation chamber, flanked by 2 armed guards in full combat gear. The Council had requested the talks be held without military presence. Marcus had politely declined. The galaxy needed to understand that humanity negotiated from strength now, not desperation. Arbiter Vaughn waited in the chamber. Mercury form contained within a diplomatic field that allowed physical interaction. Around them, holographic representatives from all 73 Council species materialized, their forms reflecting the incredible diversity of galactic civilization. Marcus took his seat directly across from Vaughn. No subordinate position this time. No judgment circle. Equals at a negotiating table. "Ambassador Webb," Vaughn began, the 3-voice harmony sounding weary. "The Council has authorized me to negotiate terms for ending this conflict. We acknowledge that our exile vote was premature and unjust. We invite humanity to join the Galactic Council with full rights and privileges." "In exchange for what?" Marcus asked bluntly. "Immediate withdrawal from the 17 occupied facilities. Return of seized infrastructure. And most importantly, assurances that humanity will abide by Council law going forward." Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying the assembled representatives. 3 months ago, these beings had condemned his entire species without hesitation. Now they sat before him, offering everything humanity had originally requested. But Marcus hadn't spent 3 months preparing for war just to accept the Council's first offer. Unacceptable, he stated. Humanity will join the Council, but under different terms than you're proposing. Councillor Thrane's geometric form pulsed with agitation. You're in no position to dictate terms, Ambassador. We could destroy your homeworld if we chose. Could you? Marcus asked mildly. He activated a holographic display showing real-time positions of human military assets. 300 warships distributed throughout Council space. Stealth teams embedded in critical infrastructure across 1,000 worlds. And most importantly, complete tactical information on every Council species' vulnerabilities. We've been inside your civilization for 3 months, Marcus continued. We know where you manufacture antimatter, where you store genetic archives, where you process food, where you generate power. We know the exact location of every critical system that keeps your 7,000 worlds functioning. He let that sink in before continuing. So no, Councillor Thrane, you couldn't destroy Earth, because the moment you tried, my Admiral would give the order, and your civilization would collapse. Not in years. Not in months. In days, the chamber erupted in protests and outrage. Marcus waited patiently for silence to return. However, he said quietly, humanity doesn't want to destroy the Council. We never did. We came to you 3 months ago, seeking peaceful coexistence. You rejected us. You called us dangerous and aggressive, and unfit for civilized society. You were determined to see us as monsters. He stood, addressing the entire assembly. So we became the monsters you feared. We showed you exactly what humanity is capable of when threatened. And we did it without killing a single one of your citizens. Not one. Because unlike you, we actually believe in the values you claim to represent. Arbiter Vaughn's form shifted uncertainly. What are you proposing, Ambassador? A new framework for Council membership. One that acknowledges reality instead of pretending it doesn't exist. Humanity will join the Council with full diplomatic rights. But we maintain our military as an independent force. We keep our ships, our weapons, and our strategic positions. That's unacceptable, Representative Kalex protested. It would give humanity military superiority over the entire Council. Yes, Marcus agreed. It would, because the Council doesn't have a military anymore. You dismantled it over millions of years of peace. You built your civilization on trust and cooperation, which is admirable. But it left you completely vulnerable to any species willing to use force. He pulled up historical data, showing the Council's military capabilities over time. Once, they'd maintained defensive fleets, security forces, rapid response teams. All of it had gradually dissolved as peace became permanent. You created a power vacuum, Marcus explained. And nature abhors a vacuum. If not humanity, eventually some other species would have filled it. We're just the first to reach that capability. Councilor Mrez spoke up, the gaseous being's voice carrying unexpected support. The human makes a valid point. We've been fortunate that no hostile species has emerged in the last 1,000,000 years. But fortune is not strategy. So what? Thrane demanded. We allow humanity to become the Council's military arm. Trust them to protect us? No, Marcus said. You allow humanity to maintain security while you rebuild your own defensive capabilities. We train your people, share our technology, help you develop proper military forces. In 50 years, maybe 100, the Council won't need us anymore. But until then, we keep the peace. Arbiter Vaughn processed this proposal, 3 billion Vothrine minds debating simultaneously. You're suggesting humanity becomes the Council's protector, the very species we exiled for being too dangerous. I'm suggesting you accept reality, Marcus replied. The galaxy isn't as peaceful as you believed. Humanity proved that. But we also proved we can exercise restraint. We could have destroyed those 17 facilities. We chose to disable them. We could have killed thousands during our attacks. We chose to evacuate first. We've shown you our strength and our mercy. He leaned forward, meeting Vaughn's shifting gaze directly. The question is whether you can overcome your pride enough to accept help from the species you wronged. The chamber fell silent. The representatives exchanged looks, transmitted private communications, and debated amongst themselves. Finally, Councilor Mrez spoke. I move that we accept the human proposal with modifications. Humanity joins the Council with full membership. They maintain military independence, but operate under Council oversight. And we establish a joint defense initiative to rebuild proper security forces across all member species. Seconded, came a voice from one of the smaller species that had voted to preserve humanity during the original Exile vote. The vote was called. This time, it took 3 hours of debate. But eventually, the result appeared. Accept human terms. 58 reject. 15, not unanimous, but a clear majority. Arbiter Vaughn solidified into a more stable form. The Council accepts your terms. Ambassador Webb, humanity is granted full membership with the modifications proposed by Councilor Mrez. We will begin immediate negotiations on the joint defense initiative. Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of 3 months of preparation. Fear and determination finally lifting. Then we have an agreement. Earth will begin withdrawing from occupied positions immediately. But our ships remain on station until the defense initiative is formally established. Agreed. The formal ceremony took another hour, with representatives from each species acknowledging humanity's membership individually. When it finally concluded, Marcus found himself approached by Councilor Mrez. That was quite a performance, Ambassador, the gaseous being observed. You had this entire negotiation planned from the beginning, didn't you? Marcus allowed himself a small smile. We spent 3 months preparing for war. Did you really think we didn't also prepare for peace? You could have destroyed us, Mrez stated quietly. Your admiral had the capability. Why didn't you? Because destroying you was never the goal. Making you see us as equals was. The Council needed to understand that humanity isn't going away, that we have value beyond what you initially assessed, that fear and exile aren't solutions to differences. We treated you poorly, Mrez acknowledged. The exile vote was driven by fear, not wisdom. Yes, Marcus agreed. But you're not the first civilization to make decisions out of fear. You won't be the last. The important thing is what you do after you realize the mistake. He extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. After a moment, Mrez extended a tendril of contained gas, and they shook dot on Station Olympus. Admiral Torres received the withdrawal orders and immediately began repositioning her fleet. The warships that had held Council infrastructure hostage for 3 days began pulling back, allowing Council personnel to reclaim their facilities. Commander Kumar supervised the evacuation of Catherine Prime's orbital station, ensuring every human team departed cleanly. As his ship prepared to undock, he received a transmission from the Catherine Station Master. Commander Kumar, we appreciate your professionalism during this crisis. Your medical team saved several lives during the evacuation. Kumar felt an unexpected warmth at the acknowledgement. We're not monsters, Station Master. We never were. We were just fighting for our right to exist. We understand that now. Safe travels, Commander. Across Council space, similar exchanges occurred. Human forces withdrawing with the same precision they'd attacked with. Council personnel reclaiming facilities that had been meticulously maintained during occupation. A gradual transition from war to peace. On Earth, The celebrations lasted for days. Humanity had faced exile, prepared for war, and emerged as full members of galactic civilization. The planet that had been condemned as too dangerous to coexist with had proven its worth through strength and restraint. Marcus Webb returned to Earth as a hero. Parades filled the streets. Leaders offered congratulations. But he found himself standing alone in his office late one night, staring at a recording of that first council session. Arbiter Vaughn's voice echoed through the speakers. "Your species' entire existence is the crime, Ambassador." He'd proven them wrong. But part of him wondered what would have happened if the council had accepted humanity from the beginning. How much fear and preparation and conflict could have been avoided with simple acceptance. His assistant, Lisa Grant, found him there in the darkness. "Sir, the President wants to know if you're attending the victory celebration." "In a moment," Marcus replied. "Lisa, do you think we made the right choice? Going to war instead of accepting exile?" She considered the question seriously. "I think we made the only choice we could, sir. The Council didn't give us alternatives. They judged us without trial and condemned us without appeal. We fought back the only way that would make them listen. At what cost, though? We militarized our entire civilization, turned scientists into soldiers, built weapons instead of colonies. We also united humanity for the first time in history," Lisa countered. "We proved we could compete with civilizations millions of years older than us. We earned respect instead of begging for acceptance. I'd say that was worth the cost." Marcus smiled slightly. "When did you become so wise?" "I learned from the best, sir." He stood, straightening his jacket. "Come on. If I have to attend a celebration, you're coming with me." In the Grand Assembly Hall, Arbiter Vaughn stood alone after the other representatives had departed. The Mercury form flowed slowly, reflecting deep contemplation. A junior Vothrine administrator approached hesitantly. "Arbiter, the consensus wishes to know your assessment of the human situation." Vaughn was quiet for a long moment before responding. 3 months ago, we voted to exile humanity because we feared they would disrupt our peace. We were correct. They did disrupt it. They showed us how vulnerable we'd become, how dependent on assumptions of perpetual cooperation. Was exiling them a mistake? Yes, but perhaps a necessary one. If we'd simply accepted humanity into the Council, we would have continued our gradual decline into complacency. Now we're forced to rebuild, to remember that peace must be defended, not simply assumed. The humans did this intentionally. Vaughn's phone rippled with what might have been amusement. Ambassador Webb is more cunning than we gave him credit for. He didn't just want Council membership. He wanted to fundamentally change how the Council operates. And he succeeded. The administrator departed, leaving Vaughn alone with thoughts of the future. A future where humanity would serve as both member and guardian of galactic civilization, where the species they'd tried to exile would become essential to their survival. It was ironic, poetic, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. But it was also, Vaughn admitted privately, probably the best outcome they could have hoped for. 5 years later, the first Joint Council Human Defense Force graduated from training. 10 years later, 15 Council species had rebuilt their military capabilities with human assistance. 20 years later, humanity's rapid advancement had become an asset rather than a threat, driving innovation across the galaxy. And 50 years later, when a genuine external threat emerged from beyond Council space, it was humanity who led the defense. The species that had been exiled for being too dangerous became the galaxy's greatest protectors. Ambassador Marcus Webb, now elderly and retired, watched the defense fleet launch and allowed himself a satisfied smile. The Council had voted to exile Earth. Humanity had declared war without a second chance, and in doing so, they'd saved not just themselves, but the entire galaxy. Sometimes, he reflected, The greatest victories come from refusing to accept defeat. 2. To retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.